Okay, so we're going to find the derivative of this expression, 8 over sine x plus 1 over cotangent of x. And, we've got a cotangent in here. A lot of people don't remember what the derivative of cotangent is, and that's okay. We're going to just going to write everything here in terms of sines and cosines. So I'm going to rewrite this as 8 over sine x plus, now remember 1 over cotangent is the same thing as tangent, which is sine over cosine. So I got sine x over cosine x. And I'm going to find the derivative. Now notice I've got quotients here. So I'm going to have to think about the quotient rules. Now let's remember the quotient rule is that if if y equals u over v, then y prime equals u prime v minus u v prime over v squared. So we're just going to remember this, and we're going to apply this quotient rule in each one of these cases right here. So let's go ahead here and do this. Okay, so y prime is equal to, okay, so u over v. So I've got u prime, which is 0, times v, which is sine x, minus u, which is 8, and v prime, so the derivative of sine x is going to be cosine x. And all of that goes over the denominator squared. So that's over sine squared x. Okay, so I've got the derivative of this first term. Let's go ahead and do the second term over here. So plus. And so I've got u over v. U prime would give me a cosine x. V would be another cosine x. Minus u, which is sine x. And v prime, so the derivative down here in the bottom would be negative sine x. And all that goes over the denominator squared, which is cosine squared x. Okay, so we've got this. Now at this point, the calculus part is actually done. We're through with the calculus part of this. The rest of this is just simplification and maybe using some trig identities and trying to see if we can kind of get down to a reasonable answer. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so here I've got, let's see, this part goes away. So I've got negative 8 cosine x over sine squared x. And on this side, I've got cosine times cosine, so that's cosine squared. These two negatives make this a plus, so this is cosine squared plus sine squared. And remember, cosine squared plus sine squared is just equal to 1. That's the Pythagorean identity. So this is just 1 over cosine squared x. And okay, sure, we got it down to an answer, and there's nothing wrong with this answer right here at all. The only problem is it's not equivalent to one of the answers that's in the choice here for this question. And so what we got to do is see if we can write it down, in a way that's equivalent to one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can write this as, let's see, negative 8 cosine x. And I've got a sine squared in the denominator. I'm going to write this as 1 over sine x, and I'm going to do another 1 over sine x. Right, that's just 1 over sine squared right there. But I'm writing it this way for a particular reason. You'll see here in just a second. And I know that 1 over cosine squared is the same thing as secant squared x. Okay. And so I've got negative 8 cosine times 1 over sine times 1 over sine. And the question is that equivalent to one of the answers that I see in the choices? And it looks pretty close to this one right over here that I can see. It looks pretty close to this one. I've got negative 8 cosecant x times cotangent x plus secant squared x. So let's see if we can get that. I've got negative 8. Okay, that part's taken care of. Cosine over sine, well, that is the same thing as cotangent. And I'm left with a 1 over sine right here, which is a cosecant. And I've got my secant squared x over here. Looks like I've arrived at one of the choices that's in that quiz question. All right, I hope that's been helpful.